Sergeant Major, what does leadership mean to you?
What does leadership mean to me? That's a very broad question. Leadership to me is about how we improve those that we work with, the unit that we work in, and our general surroundings. What are we doing to improve our area and the people around us?
Is there a certain style of leadership that you believe to be best?
I think there are leadership styles that work better than others. I myself tend to be a collaborative leader. But I think the more important part to that is that it isn't necessarily always what I prefer as a leadership style, but what does the individual that I'm leading or working with need in their leader? How can I best address the issues for them in a way that they will understand and respond to? So I think as a leader, it's very important to certainly work within your comfort zone, but to have some experience and some ability to adapt your leadership style for the needs of the individuals that you're working with.
So what do you think distinguishes a good leader from a great leader?
Distinguishing between a great leader and a good leader, to me, is about listening. Good leaders are individuals a lot of times who have leadership down. They understand the technical aspects to leadership, but I think what makes them great leaders is when they learn to listen. Listening is something that can be done in many ways. It's not just hearing the voice of a soldier that comes to share something with you, but also listening to the organization and how it's responding to what's happening and making those adaptations there. As leaders, I think we sometimes focus on the message that we're trying to send and what we're trying to get in a response, when if we listen to what the organization is telling us or the individual is telling us, we can then make adjustments to where we're at and the things that we're presenting to them so that they can maybe understand them better and have a clear understanding of our intent and where we're going.
Are there any practices from when you were a junior leader that the Army no longer employs that we should go back to?
Well, I don't know if there's any practices that the Army no longer employs, but I think there's some things that could be adapted from when I was a junior leader. For senior individuals, it can sometimes be difficult to adapt, and you'll hear a lot of folks talk about millennials and the generational differences in our formation. I don't see those as being as much of an issue as some. And so when it comes to looking at the things that I did or had as a junior individual, I think adaptations are there, and one of those would be communication. We don't communicate the same way that we did when I was young, a young soldier. We use different mechanisms, we use different modes to get the message, but I think the important part of that communication is how is the message being received and what is being sent and received. So bringing back the practice of putting out information in a concise, organized manner, getting all the information out to soldiers, and having them respond and be able to deliver that message to subordinates is something that I think has become somewhat of a lost art. That I think we should work with our junior individuals to gain an understanding of that. Having the technology in your hand and the ability to reach back sometimes is not as good a thing as we might think, because we don't relay the full message on the front side with the idea that we can contact them at any time throughout, and that isn't always the case.
So what is your advice to anyone who wishes to become a successful leader?
Well, I think a big part of becoming a successful leader is why are you doing it? If you're going to be a successful leader, you should be passionate about the organization you're leading, the individuals that you're leading, and not just about yourself. It needs to be about something more than that. As I see individuals coming up through the ranks, they sometimes focus more on looking up at where they're going rather than looking to their right and left and down. And if you want to be a successful leader, in my opinion, you need to focus on your peers, learn from them the successful things that they're doing, learn the mistakes that they're making so that you're not making the same mistakes. But most importantly, look down to the soldiers that you're responsible for. Because if you take care of those soldiers and you take care of the organization, then that will make you a successful leader. But if you focus on where you're going and where you could end up someday and how to get there, you lose sight of the organization and the individuals that you're leading. And that isn't just a military thing. It's a civilian thing as well. So as an M-Day Sergeant Major, I spend a lot of time in the civilian world, and those leadership techniques transfer there as well.
So what do NCOs in leadership positions have to do that's different from officers that are in leadership positions?
Well, I think the separation between NCOs and officers in terms of leadership is the amount of time and the effort that we are expected to put into soldiers, and appropriately so. That being that as an NCO, I've always felt that it's important that I know my soldiers' backgrounds, that I know their family life, that I understand where they come from and their needs so that I can assist them in developing. I had a leader once tell me that we're not just here to make better soldiers, we're here to make better people. And as NCOs, if we don't do that, we kind of lose an opportunity for a lot of things, to impact their lives as individuals, but to also grow the team, the cohesion, and develop the unit overall, which leads to retention as well. Leaders need to care about soldiers, and the soldiers will know if they don't. And so it becomes very apparent quickly in conversation with leaders whether or not they're really interested in what you're saying or who you are versus if they're not. You'll lose them if you're not interested. They will do the things that they need to do and probably go on from there. But leaders that actually care, that invest the time, and as NCOs, I think that's part of our role. Officers are developing the plan, they're doing the analysis and all those sorts of things, and for us as NCOs, it's about execution. It's about making things happen, and in order to do that, we have to have a different relationship with soldiers, a professional relationship, but one that covers more of their background and who they are as individuals.
What lessons as a junior leader did you learn that you apply today as a senior leader?
That's a great question. As a junior leader, I learned a lot of things. And I'm not typically one to focus on the negative, but I think in this case, a lot of those lessons that I learned come from that direction, in that I learned what I didn't want. So as a junior leader, it stuck in my mind greatly when a leader did something that caused me to struggle or caused me to have an issue or a concern. And so I remember those to this day, those times that you would approach a leader and you read that they really aren't interested in what you're saying to them. And so as a leader, I try not to do those things. I try to make sure that I have time for my soldiers, that I'm an active listener and actually engaged in the things that they're saying to me. In different times in my career, there were times that there were leaders rotating in and out on a regular basis for reasons that were legitimate, but it caused turmoil in the platoon. And so as a senior leader now, when I look at those moves, I give that consideration to the impact of the lower level soldiers that don't have the continuity of leadership there. So a lot of those things that I learned as a junior leader, while they may sound negative, they actually became positive learning opportunities for me, in that they're burned into my brain and my experience as things that I should make sure that we're not doing to our subordinates at this time.